During our time, humans have fought to survive and excel. With everything our planet has thrown at us, we get up after being knocked down. But have there been moments when we were given the time to create as we have today? What objects would have to be left behind for our achievements to be recognized in the future? Or would their technology be so different that anything that could be left behind would no longer be seen for the accomplishments that had been achieved in order to reach that point? In 1984, Elias Sotomayor, an engineer, and the head of the Ecuadorian Ministry of Mines went in search for gold. With the help of a group of prospectors, he launched an expedition in the western foothills of the Los Andes mountain range. And after a grueling trek through the tunnels of a cave, reaching a depth of over 290 feet, a trove of artifacts were uncovered. The find garnered international attention, but as many finds come to experience, it was just a matter of time until they disappeared into the folds as the next major discovery came into prominence. It wasn't until these artifacts crossed the curiosities of one individual that they were carried into a brighter light. Klaus Donna began his career as an exhibition curator. His profession focused on displaying international art. In 1981, he began showcasing cultural exhibitions, and through this, his interest in artifacts, which he believed to be of questionable origins, began to grow. But it wasn't until some years had passed that he had seen enough to warrant further investigation. Although a skeptic, Klaus set out to close the argument once and for all. He wanted to have these items on display, where they could be studied by scientists, to find out if they were the forgeries or the genuine articles some had claimed them to be. So in 1999, he set off around the world and began what would be a 1.5-year-long hunt for every strange and claimed ancient artifact he could find. And in 2001, after acquiring the trust of owners and exhibitors, he had managed to secure for the grand opening of his exhibition in Vienna with 470 artifacts. There was one problem. The scientists could not find a forgery among them. This set Klaus's skeptic view on its head and drove him into wanting to know more about what else could be out there. An interest that has kept him looking and asking questions to this very day. One of the artifacts that helped change his perspective was from the 1984 find in La Manna, which Dr. Elias had uncovered. The disc is almost 11 inches in height and 2 kilograms in weight. It is carved on both sides and is made of a particular rock called lyddite. This type of rock has been used for thousands of years to make tools such as arrowheads, small axes, and jewelry. It's a sedimentary rock that is created from radiolarite and is referred to as lyddite due to it being a distinct type of chert that is rarer than other colors. When radiolarians, a protozoa that has existed for 600 million years, expire, and their skeletons fall to the ocean floor, they create a layer of silica sludge. It takes 1 million years to create a 1 to 2 foot layer. Silt and debris then follow, pressing down with their weight. The process is then repeated. Lyddite is between a 6 and a 7 on the Mohs scale. However, the rock in which this disc was created from was formed in extremely thin layers, not much thicker than a sheet of paper. Those who have seen the disc, including Klaus, have said its layers are like leaves. This would mean carving into it would have revealed the underlying layers on its faces. But the disc is smooth on both sides. In order to achieve this result, it would have had to have been pressed within a mold, and yet pressing this type of rock would have resulted in it breaking. Klaus had an expert check on the disc, and was told that although there is no answer for how or when it was made, he was sure that we would not be able to accomplish what was done with the same material today. So with all the technology we have at our disposal, How is it not feasible to accomplish this task? What did our ancestors know that exceeds our capabilities? What process was this artifact put through to create the images and keep its layers from separating and breaking? Some believe Elias was paid to stage the find. If this is accurate, who would part with a collection this size to receive nothing in return other than the recognition and celebration of someone else? The possibility of theft from any collector dwindles, as no one has yet come forward to claim these treasures found. The private sale of these artifacts alone would have given Dr. Elias and anyone who supported the expedition more wealth than what any news article could have. But if Elias did manage to arrange this find, would it mean that the artifacts are fake? Some of the pieces in the cache were classified as belonging to the Muiscas. This led many to believe that all of the artifacts found in 1984 were from this people. Yet many do not fit within the culture, and a quick look at the artifacts suggests that they are from many different cultures. Although it is unlikely the trove was set up to gain international attention, there are other possibilities as to why so many unique artifacts could have been stowed deep within a cave in La Manna. At the onset of the Spanish occupation, the conquistadors excelled in robbing items during raids upon the native South American people. In order to keep the conquests ongoing, the King of Spain required funding, and gold, along with anything else deemed of value, was requested to be looted from the cultures they raided and be sent to Spain. But what if some of the leaders and soldiers decided to keep some of the spoils, tucking them away so they could come back later and not have to share them with anyone else? Some of the artifacts could have also have been carried down by the native cultures through generations from when their ancestors had experienced a wealthier and more prosperous time. They may have also come across these items and protected them, making them a part of their culture to revere and embrace the lives of a people who passed. It is also possible that in being driven to peace by a common enemy, many of the cultures banded together and hid their most sacred objects, knowing the Spanish were coming to take them. However this item found its way into our present time remains to be answered. And due to the way it was discovered, we may never know. But if any of these are true, what type of culture had the ability to create this disc and other artifacts that were found of the same material? Another important question is one that no one has any choice in bringing up when seeing the depictions. Are these images the stages of reproduction? How did these people know of embryonic and fetal development when the first phases of this process required our civilization to develop the microscope in order to see? On one side, there appears to be two different types of people and the way in which each began, which are depicted as a step-by-step process with the anatomy of the individuals and the type of fetus each produce. What is also interesting is the outer ring. Could this outer ring be the same interpretation that is depicted on the inner circle, but in a written language? Perhaps we are looking at an object created to teach people in many languages, as the other side of the disc seems to represent much of the same, but the style in which it is being represented is unique. Could we have been handed down by our ancestors the equivalent of a page from a biology school book? If it's eventually determined that this object is from our past, what technology did they possess to allow them to see at a microscopic level? What steps were taken in order to reach it, and who were the first among them to introduce this idea? In our current place, we tend to view everything through the lens of electric devices and the technology we have, which was started on a path put forward by thinkers. Our present day would be drastically different than what we see around us if Nikola Tesla would have succeeded in convincing the public that his idea was better than Edison's. An important question comes from this. What type of energy would we be using if we grew up in an age where electricity was impossible to utilize? There have been times on our planet in which the sun was more active, and if we would have been around then, we could not have been able to develop our first radios, light bulbs, and telephones. We would have needed to find another way to make our lives easier, and since our world is ever-changing, what other events could come about that would curb our thinking into developing a different form of energy and technology? If our ancestors were able to create an object that we cannot accomplish today, isn't it time we start believing there were people in our past who may have had the ability to surpass us? If this artifact among the discovery in Ecuador turns out to be genuine, they most certainly did.